So today's phase 2 training will focus on the family and camper profiles, how to send and save emails in CampSite, a couple of admin features, including an organization tool called Bunking boards, how to approve camper enrollment requests in manual processing mode, and how to unenroll a camper. So today I'll be using my training database, and the first place I want to go is to the family profile. So a couple places to view that. If they're in my recently visited pages, I can click here to link back to the family profile. If they are a newly added family, I can click on the green campers module to go to the camper dashboard and see my newest leads. Or I am able to search in this upper right search corner for the family or camper by name, email, or phone number. So when I start typing characters, it's going to populate some results here, and I want to go to the Paulson family. And that loads the Paulson family profile. At the top, I have the family name available. I can double click on this field to edit if needed. You'll notice these camper tiles. So if there are campers or siblings in the family, they'll have a tile here. And if I click on that, it links to their individual camper profile. Over on the right hand, we have our quick notes section. This is admin only. It is not visible to parents, but I can double click here to enter a quick note. And the idea behind this is it's something you might want information at a glance. If it's something pertinent to the whole family, that admin should be aware of. Then we get into our standard tabs on the family profile, first being the primary parents information. So parent 1 and parent 2 are the two possible account holders for a family profile in CampSite. This information is double-clicked to edit from the admin side if you needed to make any updates on their behalf. Down here we have our basic info and addresses. Again, it is a double-click to edit if needed. And at the very bottom, custom fields, these can be customized per family. We'll talk a little bit about this later on in the training. Next, we have our divorced parents tab. These profiles can only be added by an admin user. So parents, the primary parent account holders cannot add divorced parent accounts. And these accounts do not have access to financials or to the enrollment information. They're not able to change things on the dashboard. Essentially, these profiles would be added in order to keep them in communication. So if you had other parents that wanted to be included in emails, an admin can add them under the divorced parents tab and they can be included in those. The next tab that I'm going to go over today is actually the Tasks tab. You'll notice there's some of these that I'm not addressing. It's either because they are in an add-on module training or in a future webinar, one of the core phase trainings. So we're going to skip all the way ahead to the Tasks tab. Tasks are admin to admin assignments regarding this family. So to add a new task as an admin, I would give it a title, and then I need to assign it to someone. So as I start typing, the other admin in my system will populate here and I can select them. I could assign to more than one admin if needed. So if I needed to have multiple people follow up, I can add multiple assignees. The date and time are essentially when this should be done, completed, or considered due. So let's say I would like this done by the end of day on Friday. And then I would just want to add a description so the assignee has a better idea of what the task is regarding. And now I'm going to add task. Creating that task sends an email to the assignee with the information. They will be able to come back and mark the task as completed, but they will not be able to delete the task. I can double click on the pencil icon and go in. I am able to edit information here. And the tasks that I created, I have the ability to delete or mark as completed as the admin who created them initially. So tasks are visible and editable here on the family profile. They will also populate for the assignee on the Welcome to CampSite page, which is located under the house icon. The Your Upcoming Tasks section here will show any that are due tomorrow, due today, or any that are past due that are assigned to you. You can also select calendars here and be able to view tasks that are assigned to you, created by you, completed, or you could view all tasks in the system. I'm going to use this task to link back to the family profile. And next, I'm going to move on to the email history tab. This is really just a record of the outgoing emails to this family. You do on the left-hand side have the option to double click this envelope icon and resend an email. So if it wasn't received or was accidentally deleted for some reason, you can resend double clicking there. If the email is a saved email and it's sent by an admin user, the name of the saved email will populate here. The subject of the email shows the subject, and if you click on the subject, it'll give you a preview of the email. So this is an idea of how that would appear to the family in their inbox. You have the sent and sent by statistics here, so when and who sent it, or if it was an automatic notification. And then on the right, this action or status of the sent email. When it's just sent, that means it was not delivered successfully. That happens in our training database when we have emails that are not real, but for the real emails, you'll see it delivered. That means it was delivered to the inbox successfully. It could be open status, that the parent had actually opened the email, or if you have any attachments, you might see clicked here, meaning that the parent had selected to download or followed a link, whatever attachment or link was within that email. You may also see dropped, bounced, or marked as spam. Those statuses, I believe, will go into a little more in depth in the phase 3 training, but bounced or marked spam, you would want to follow up with the family to make sure the email was entered correctly and they didn't accidentally mark it as spam. If it is dropped, please feel free to contact CampSite support. Typically, a dropped email will need to be removed from the drop list. So for that status, you'll want to contact support, and that's at support@campmanagement.com. The next tab I'm going to go to here is the Notes tab. So this allows an admin to add a family-specific note to the profile under different custom categories. So the category drop down here, I have these that we've created or uncategorized, for example. When I select that, I'll be able to add a new note to this family profile. There are 2 levels of permissions in order to add notes to the family or camper profile. The first level is the just permission to view notes, and that's located under admin and the DB management tab here for the user permissions. If I double click the 3 dots next to one of my users and go down to expand the camper section, the first part of it is this family and camper notes. So having this permission enabled is the first step. The second step is permission for individual categories, and that's located under admin as well, but it will be either under the camper or family tab, depending on what level the notes are being added. So for family level notes, I would come here to view my categories or double click the pencil to edit the categories. So if I needed to give other users access here, I could do so. I can also add new categories and decide when I'm creating it, what users should have access to create notes or edit notes under this category. If your admin users are not seeing the notes tab on a family or camper profile and they have the DB management permission enabled, you'll want to come to the family or camper notes to make sure that they have the categories enabled as well, and save changes if you make any here. I'm gonna go back to the Paulson family profile now. After the Notes tab, we have Files. This is really just to upload and store files that aren't forms or anything else during the enrollment process, but something that you want to keep on the family profile in CampSite and just store that here. And finally, the History tab. This notes most of the admin or parent actions that are taken either on the parent dashboard or on the admin side. It'll note which admin and when. So if you're ever having trouble kind of tracking down the history of something, if something was changed, or specifically with financial changes as well, those will be noted here in the History tab. So you can always go back and review that. The last item here on the family profile is our action menu. When I drop that down, the first option is to send an email, and I'll go into this a little bit more after the camper profile. Sending a text message, if you have the text messaging module added on, you can send an individual text to this family. Generating documents, labels, and lead cards, we'll really go over those functions in the Phase 3 webinar. Reset dashboard password. I do want to select this one. If the family is having difficulty logging in, if they have tried to recover their password and they said they didn't receive the email or they're having another issue, you can manually reset the password for them. You can type in a password that meets the criteria, or you can utilize the little wand icon here to the right. If I double click, it'll generate a random password that meets the criteria. And then I need to select which profile am I resetting the password for and select to email it to them so that they will receive that and be able to sign in. Next in the action menu, manage attendance pins. That only applies to the attendance module. Adding a camper, if I were manually adding this family profile or I needed to help them update it for some reason, as an admin, I can add a camper to a family profile here. Open Family Radar, this we'll see more of in our Phase 3 training, but it essentially opens a Google map with the family's home address as a pinpoint, so you can kind of get a spatial relation idea of where they're at. Then we have merge into another family or delete this family. These two permissions can be modified under the Admin DB Management tab for users, so they do not have to be enabled for all admin. Merging into another family, you would use if you needed to combine two family profiles. For instance, let's say the parent one signs up with his email and he didn't add parent two, then parent two comes, signs up, and she signs up with her own email, didn't add parent one, they could potentially have duplicate profiles. If they try to create a new profile with the same email, they'll get a notification that they already have an account and be prompted to log into it. But it can happen that a different email is used and they have duplicate profiles. If that's the case, then merge into another family can be used where you combine the two family profiles using the ID information located up here in the URL. And then delete this family. That is considered a permanent action. At this time, we do not consider this something that support can undo. So essentially, permanent action to delete a family. If it's a test family profile that you created, that's perfectly fine, and feel free to delete those to get rid of that data. But if it's a real family profile, please know that deleting the family cannot be undone, and you will be permanently deleting their records from your database. And again, that permission can be managed under Admin DB Management for users who may or may not need that access. That's all I'm going to cover at this point for the family profile. I'm going to take a brief pause and check to see if any questions have come in. We received a question, how did you get to the CampSite admin? So when I'm signed in to my database, you should see admin up here in the navigation bar. And then under admin, there's multiple tabs. Access to this DB management tab might not be enabled for all users. So if you don't see that in your view, you will probably want to work with someone on your team or ask other admin if they're able to access that and if your permissions need to be updated. If you need the URL to log into your database, the admin page, then that can be updated as well. Oh, awesome. I saw it. Thanks. So that is great. I am going to go ahead back to the family profile and move on to camper profiles now, but please, if you're typing a question, go ahead and submit it and we can absolutely return to that. For now, I'm going back to the family profile and then we're going to go to a camper profile. So I'm going to select Jill Paulson. She's our favorite camper to use for trainings, but that means she has a lot of data on her profile, so it does take just a moment to load. Here is Jill's camper profile. On the upper left, I have a link back to the Paulson family profile, so if I needed to access that. If I were to click on her profile photo, it would give me the option of uploading a new photo. So as an admin, I can upload new camper profile photos. The camper name here, I could double click to edit if needed. Next to the current year in the database, 2021, Jill has the status of enrolled. We'll talk a little bit more about these statuses and how you can add custom statuses or update them manually. But when a camper is enrolled, that status is applied automatically. So an admin cannot manage this status or change it without unenrolling her. And I can see everything that she's enrolled in here underneath that. I also see a link to the sibling profile. So Jack Paulson is also in this family. If she had additional siblings, they would be separated here with commas and links to their profiles. Over on the right, campers have their own quick notes section. So if you have something that's pertinent just to this camper, rather than adding it to the family, I would recommend adding it to their camper profile. And again, this is admin only. So parents, families do not see this information. Moving on to the tabs across this profile, first is the basic info. The thing I want to note here is two fields that are not editable in this view. The first being age. If I double click on that, it's not editable because it's automatically calculated based on date of birth. So if I double click date of birth, that would be where I would need to make a change if something had been entered incorrectly. And then I would make sure to click OK here to save that change. The other item that is not editable from this basic info tab is the current grade. If I double click on that, I'll get a notification that it's considered a yearly value. So I would need to go to the current year tab to edit that information. So that's where I'll go next, the current year tab, 2021 for my database. The first sub-tab for yearly info is that grade basic info. So here I could double click to edit if needed, and it would automatically update on the main basic info page. Under the current year tab, I also have a history of enrollment requests. This is not necessarily where I'm going to approve the request, but it is where I can go view when it was submitted, when it was processed and approved, or if there's a different status, if it's waitlisted or new. I can also click to view the registration contract and download that. And this is generated every time a family submits a enrollment request for a camper. There, it's loaded. So this will have the camp information, the family information, camper information, the terms and conditions that they sign and agree to, which enrollment options they requested, payment method, if they are on a payment schedule, and then the signature and date it was submitted. So this contract will be available that you can go back to download or reference at any time if needed. And it is generated every time that they submit a request. So if those terms and conditions are updated, it will reflect the most recent version of those whenever it was submitted. Next to enrollment requests, back on the camper profile, we have enrollment questions. So we have general enrollment questions and then enrollment option specific questions. So that's where you can view those. You could edit the responses if needed. Enrollment extras, if you have extras as part of the registration process, they are visible here as to what the camper's already selected, and they are editable that you could remove or add additional extras as an admin. Adding an extra here does automatically populate the cost on the financial page, but removing one does not. So if I remove an extra, I do need to go manually remove or reverse that from the financials. And finally, under the current yearly info tab, we have custom fields. So if you have custom data for the database, that can be edited here on a camper level for the yearly fields. We do have the previous year's information, so if I needed to go back to view what they were enrolled in or what requests they had in previous years, I can see those statuses here. The medical tab is just for the medical module. The forms tab will go over forms more in our phase 3 training, but this is where I could go to confirm that it was received, view the submission, or mark it as received myself, as well as delete a submission. Next, we have a email history tab here on the camper profile. It is different than the email history on the family profile, even though the recipients are still the parents, not necessarily just the camper. And that has to do with the different levels of emails we offer, family and camper level. And I'll go into that further after this camper profile. We'll go into the sending and saving emails. Camper notes, again, this would be twofold permission that under admin DB management, the camper and family notes is enabled, and then under admin and campers for notes, they would have to have access to the categories as well in order to select those and add or edit a note underneath that on the camper profile. It's also a files tab, again, just to upload anything that's not included in forms or enrollment, but you still want to store it here. And the history tab of the changes that have been made. Under the action menu, we have send an email for a camper level email, generating documents and labels, which again, we'll go into in phase 3 a little more. I have the option to enroll this camper for 2021. So as an admin, I can manually go enroll a camper from their profile. I can also waitlist them or select to manage sessions or unenroll. We'll look at both managed sessions and unenrolling after going through approving an enrollment request from the enrollment request queue. So that's typically where you'll go for new requests in manual mode. The action menu here would really be if you were manually doing it as an admin and they weren't able to submit a request for whatever reason. Open Family Radars, again, that Google map with the home address. Then we have move this camper and delete this camper. Move this camper would be moving a camper from one profile to another if they were created under the wrong family or transition and need to be under a different family profile. Move this camper would take their camper data history, move it to a different family ID. And delete this camper is considered permanent. So again, support and development not really unable to undo that. It's not a permission that everyone has to have enabled, but it is considered permanent once the camper profile is deleted. It cannot be reinstated. So that's everything on the camper profile that we're going to go over today. I am going to pause again briefly for any questions. So I have a question that a camper is enrolled in the wrong program. How can I unenroll her from the wrong program and get her into the correct one, transfer her deposit? So in that scenario, more than likely what would happen is the admin would come here to the camper profile. They would select to unenroll the camper, which I will show you a little later in this training, and then they would enroll her again. When you are enrolling, which we will also look at later in the training, you do have the option to select not to collect payment at that time, that when you're submitting, you aren't going to charge a method of payment. And that's what you would want to do in this scenario because the deposit has already been paid, so we don't want to charge them again. So I'll definitely be sure to kind of go over that scenario a little more in depth when we look at enrolling and unenrolling later today. Excellent. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and move on to saving and sending emails. So as I've already indicated, there are two levels of emails in CampSite, our camper level and our family level. The reason we have those two levels isn't really about the recipients. It's more to do with the data merge or the fields that we can include in the body of the email and whether that information is camper specific or family specific. So under the action menu, when I select that email, it shows me here emailing. It says one camper or email the family instead. I will come back to all of this data here, but what I'm going to scroll down and show you first is that my recipients can still be the parents. So sending a camper level email does not mean it has to go just to the campers. If they do have email addresses and you want to include them in it, you can select that, but they do not have to be the recipients. You can still send to the primary parent accounts or the divorced parent accounts. The reason I would utilize this camper level email is for my merge fields. So I am going to click on this just to briefly preview. If I look at my merge fields for a camper level email, I start off with camper info and all of that individual information is available. Under the enrollment tab, I have the enrollment information specific to each camper. So sending a camper level email to a family, they might receive more than one if they have multiple campers in the family, but it will be each camper's individual information that's merged in. But if this email is not specific to one camper, it could be general to the family. I'll scroll up to the top here, and rather than emailing one camper, I'm going to select to email the family instead. So it updates here to show emailing one family. If I scroll down to the bottom, I do not have the option to send a camper anymore. It's just the primary or divorced parent profiles. And if I were to go to my add merge fields, the first available tab is family information. And I still have some of that camper info, like their first names here, or the enrollment info of enrolled campers' first names, but it is much more generalized to the family than a specific camper. So now that I've gone over the difference of the two levels of email, I want to go into creating saved email templates. So from this saved email dropdown, how do I create these emails? That would start under admin. So we're moving away from the family profile now, going to admin. And again, because they're separate levels, they'll be located either under camper, saved emails, or under families, saved emails. I'm going to do a camper level saved email today. So under admin, campers, I'm going to select saved emails. Just a little bit of information on this page. You have the option to add new saved email categories at any time. So like this enrollment and uncategorized, these are categories that you can add and then assign the saved emails under those to help organize them. When you add a category, you can double click the pencil next to the category name to edit that. For my existing saved emails here, I would double click the pencil icon to be able to edit the name or the category it's assigned to. I can also archive an email, and that will hide the email essentially from the list, but I can click to show that and expand it and also unarchive an email at any time. There are a few other icons here. The gray and green paper is to make a copy of the email. So if you have an email that you like and you don't want to potentially lose it, but you want to try some edits, you can always make a copy first. The magnifying glass is a preview, so I can see how it's going to appear in the inbox for parents. And then this graph icon is saved email statistics. We'll get into this more in the phase 3 training, but if you send a saved email to multiple recipients, 9 or more at once, you can view all the statistics for that email in one place here next to the saved email. And then finally, the actual name of the email. If I needed to edit an existing saved email, I would click on the name. And that will take me to the body of the email where I can edit those details, make any changes. Now I'm going back to Camper saved emails and I'm ready to actually compose a new email. So I'll select that here on the right, compose new saved camper email. First thing here is the saved email dropdown. So if it was an existing template I want to work with, or pardon me, an existing saved email, I would select it here. But since I'm building a new email, I'll start with this type of email. And there's even a little explanation. What is this? That we have marketing level or informational. Parents are able to opt out of marketing level emails. So if it is marketing and they have not opted into that, they just won't receive it. It won't be delivered. Versus informational, if they have a profile, they will be delivered the informational email. So that's just something to be aware of when you're creating and sending these. Is it technically marketing or is this informational? Is it something that they'll need to know for camp? Next, we have email template and email signature. There's a default template for every database that is managed by our development team. If you ever want to update your default template, you can send the image, header image to support@campmanagement.com, and our development team will update that on the back end. There is the option to create custom templates and also custom email signatures. Those are both located under Admin DB Management for the custom templates and signatures. Once they're created there, again, under Admin DB Management, they'll be available in the drop downs here for email template and signature. Next, we have the From field, and this will automatically populate with the admin's information who is signed in. So it's got my admin name and my email here, and that will be the reply email if a parent does reply to this. So you can edit those if needed. And then the subject. This is a required field, and it'll be the subject line when the email's sent. So I'm going to add this enrollment confirmation email. Next, I have the option to attach a document. This would be a document that's created and generated within CampSite, and it's one of those things we'll look at again in our phase 3 training. Or this attachment feature, this would be to attach a document. It is limited to one file, and the limit is 1 megabyte size. So I do not recommend using this upload file. What I would instead recommend is in the body of the email, creating your text to hyperlink, something like the pardon me, click here to download. If I could spell that correctly today, there we are. I would highlight my text, click the link, and then I could link to a website, but if I'm using attachments or documents, I want to select this upload. I'll choose the file from my desktop, send it to the server, and click OK. That will create a hyperlink here that when they click on it, it'll download the document. So using that hyperlink and uploading them to the server, you can use as many documents, whatever file size you need. So rather than using the attachment, which is limited just to one file, 1 megabyte, I recommend doing that embedding or linking the document to be downloaded. So now let's get to the actual body of the email. I titled this enrollment confirmation, so I'm going to say this is the email I send when I'm approving their request. I'll start with my greeting, and then I immediately want to go to add merge field so I can start customizing this for this family. And I'm going to select under family info, the family last name field. I'm sending this again to confirm that their camper's enrolled. So I'll say your camper, and then I want that camper info for their first name. I'm going to say your camper first name is now enrolled in. And then this is somewhere you can get creative for your database, what kind of information you want to merge in specifically for enrollment. This has so much to do with the way that your setup is done. If you ever have questions on these fields and what they're populating, feel free to contact support and we can help look into that. I'm going to use the enrollment option and session names field for my enrollment info. So that's how you add those merge fields in, basically just in line with the regular text. And then if you needed to delete them, you would just backspace to delete them out. I could keep going with this email, but I'm going to stop here with the text of it and go ahead down to my action items. I could save, copy, or select to preview. When I select to preview, this is just the composing email screen. It's not a screen that I can send emails from. So it just uses the actual merge field info rather than the family information. If I'm sending this on an individual family profile or sending in mass, when I go to preview, I'll see the family's information populated in those fields instead. So my preview looks good. I'm going to scroll down now and go ahead and save this email. I like to recommend naming it the same thing as the subject just for continuity, but that's not a requirement. You could have a different name that is, for the admin only, and the subject is what's visible to parents. And I select my category and save. So now going back to admin and my camper saved emails. There's my enrollment confirmation email. And again, I could click on that name to go and edit and continue working on the content of that. So that is our saved email section. Again, I'm going to pause and see what questions we have. Okay, so for adding, creating those email signatures, excellent question, pardon me. That'll be under admin and it is under the DB management tab. So again, not everyone has access, but if you do, it's then in this table on the left, first email signatures and then email templates. I would like to note when I create a new signature, first it just asks for the name. Once I submit that, to add the actual content of the signature, I would double click the pencil icon next to it. And then whatever I enter here is the signature, and it will appear at the bottom of the email. So essentially like a footer or a regular email signature, whatever content you add in the email, this will appear under it if you select this signature. The pencil icon is to edit. The little two paper icon is to make a copy. So if you needed to do that, and the red circle is to delete. So if you needed to delete a signature from the list, you could do so here. Adding new email templates is essentially the same idea, that when you add, you just give it a name, but instead this is going at the top of the email and it replaces that default template. So typically it's creating a new header image here, and then this text line will be in the body of the template, so you know that's where it's going to follow. Excellent question. So that's how you create those, and then you just select them when you're creating your email or sending your email, and they will automatically populate there. So thank you all for hanging in here. We are about halfway through. I'm going to now go into a couple admin settings that are available here under admin and under campers. And the first of those is custom fields, which I did point out just a little bit on the family and camper profiles, but custom fields are intended for use by really admin only. You can, for some of these fields, provide visibility to parents, so you could make the permanent fields read-only or editable to parents, but they're not presented as part of the enrollment or registration process. So really, custom fields are intended for admin use, where you can manage information, update fields and data on a camper or family profile. That's not something that's part of enrollment. So for example, here we have 3 different scopes of custom fields. The permanent are intended to be entered just once. They can still be edited, but the idea is that the permanent field answer will stay the same. Yearly fields that are updated per camper per year, and session fields that only appear if the camper is enrolled in that session. When I select to add a new custom field, the type dropdown is pretty similar to questions in CampSite. So whatever type of response I want for my field, I would select here. Again, the scope permanent year, or if I select session, then I need to choose what session does this field apply to, or sessions does it apply to. And then these fields are reportable and editable by admin. I also have my family level fields. A popular one that I see is a membership status for some camps. If they have a way that the parents or families are part of an organization, they have a membership. If it's like an ID number or a status that is verified outside of CampSite, that information can be added here as a custom field, so it's accessible in the database as well. So that's our custom field functionality. The next admin setting I'm going over again here under admin and campers is our parent dashboard settings. So this is the parent dashboard view, giving you the option to edit the home page message. So when they first sign in, this is what's on that page or in that header. The enrollment page header text, this is where they are selecting the camper tile to start the enrollment. Then we have the forms page. This is the general forms information for campers. Next, we have a few settings: alternate display name for camper, or here at the bottom, alternate display name for parent. That's on parent-facing pages only, but you can update that language. So for example, if you would prefer participant or student rather than camper, you can update that here. Or if you would prefer guardian rather than parent, again, can update here. The Show RFI or Show New Family Enrollment Form links on the parent dashboard page. These are for any parent that gets to the parent dashboard and doesn't have an account yet. This will link them back to those forms. So if you offer both, you could opt to show both links, or you could do just one or the other, depending on what you use to create the accounts. Disallow changes to home address on parent dashboard if you wanted to lock that information so it couldn't be edited from the parent-facing side. You would enable that here. Enabling responsive parent dashboard. This should be set to yes for everyone. We highly recommend that because the legacy design of the parent dashboard is no longer being updated with the most current features. So, and also the responsive parent dashboard is mobile responsive design. So if they're on a cell phone or a tablet, it's going to fit the screen better than the standard or legacy design. So we highly recommend enabling that responsive parent dashboard. If you're curious, you can come set that to no and then go test it. But again, our recommendation is setting that to yes. So it's the most recent available design. Next, reveal enrolled enrollment options and sessions on the parent dashboard. So once the camper is approved, do you want them to see those enrollment options and sessions on the parent dashboard? If this is set to yes, they will. One argument for setting it to no might be if you have daily sessions. So if they're enrolled every day of the school year, for example, it's an after-school program, you might not want to show all of those days on the dashboard. You could set that to no. But if it's set to yes, then once they're approved, the options and sessions will be visible. Similarly, we have hide waitlisted options. So if the camper is waitlisted, not yet approved, do you want that visible, or would you like to hide that until they are either approved or not? So when it's set to no, then waitlisted options will show. If it's set to yes, that will hide waitlisted options from the parent dashboard. Then finally, the main family and camper forms landing page. So this is if I'm signed into the parent dashboard and in the table on the left-hand side, I select forms. This is the first header text. So I could go then to my family forms or to my camper forms. Once I select camper forms, then I would see this forms page header text here. So technically this main family and camper forms landing page is the first viewable header, and then the forms page is the second, that's just for campers. If I make any edits here, I do want to save changes down at the bottom, and you can come update this at any time, and it's pretty much instantaneous if you make changes here and save them, that they will update on the parent dashboard. We have one more admin functionality item that I'm going to go over before I pause for questions again, and that tool is bunking boards. So bunking boards, kind of named after the classic idea of a sleepaway camp and having bunks. It's a camper organization tool located under the green campers module and bunking boards. I do want to note, and I apologize for just bringing this up now, some of these pages have this how to use this page feature. This is something we're recently updating in CampSite, and it is so helpful. So as you're here today, learning and reviewing all this info, when you're going back into your database to kind of apply it, be sure to utilize this function, the how to use this page. Again, it's recently added, and we're really proud to kind of offer this. We think it's going to be very, very helpful to use. And bunking boards is a great example of when to maybe utilize that, because at first glance, it might be a little confusing. It is session based. So I have first my session drop down for every year. And then for each session, I have the option to add my divisions, which would be my main group, and my bunks, which are my subgroups. So division, my main group, I can double click on these fields to go in and edit at any time. And then bunk, my subgroups, again, I can double click to edit. And this can be set up however you prefer to organize campers, or what would serve your organization the most. So we did an example here of just having one division and two bunks. And then up on the upper right, I have 3 campers without division and 3 staff. If you have the staff module, they'll be available to assign here. If you don't, you can disregard that staff function. But I'm going to select my 3 campers without divisions. So these 3 campers are enrolled in this session, but they haven't been assigned to a division or bunk. I have their grade and age info. And since I just have my 1 division, I can very simply go ahead and add those. Once I've assigned them to the division, they go to this no bunk assigned category, and I can click and drag them to the appropriate bunk. Now, as an admin, I created these and there are no restrictions for them. So I am able to, rearrange these, assign campers or staff anywhere that I want to or would like to. The system isn't going to prevent me from doing that. Additionally, you'll see there's kind of a count here. So for the bunk capacity, how many campers it'll show me. And as I get closer to that capacity, the color will change. So here, once I've got 7 out of 10 campers, it turns to orange or yellow. And then once I have reached my capacity, it will turn red. And I am still able to go over capacity. Again, as the admin, it will just notify me here with that color and with the count that I'm overdoing this capacity, and I can double click to edit if needed. There are a couple icons here for the division and for each bunk. The little ID card, if I double click, will expand each of these camper tiles to show their info, their grade and age, what sessions they're enrolled in, and where they're located, as well as a link to their profile page and their camper photo if they have one uploaded. And double clicking that again will collapse those. I can print or export by division or by bunk. The arrows here, if I have multiple divisions, I can reorder those using the arrows. And the red circle, I can delete these at any time. So if I made all of these divisions, bunks, assignments, and then we decide to go in a totally different direction, I can double click and delete those, and my campers will return here to the campers without divisions section. So it doesn't unenroll them or change anything about their enrollment. It just would remove them from the division and bunk. If I create my division and bunk setup for one session and I absolutely love it and I want to use it for multiple sessions, I do have a little copy feature here just to the right of the session dropdown. It's this orange icon. If I double click that, it gives me the option to copy these divisions and bunks. I do have the option to, if I scroll down, include camper division and bunk assignments or remove that and just copy the setup. A couple other ways that this can be utilized if I go to my sessions dropdown. For example, we have this after school program where we did multiple divisions for different grade groups, and then our bunks within those are, a further subdivision within that group. In addition to the actual bunking boards tool or page here, we have a few admin settings for this tool located under admin and bunking boards. So the option to show the camper grade and age, you can toggle that off if you would like. Indicating new campers with a bolded border and multi-session campers with a red dot. So you might have noticed some of those. The first year, everyone's considered a new camper, but as you have multiple years in CampSite, then that indicator, will show campers who it's their first year. And then the display name. So this changes that in the actual dropdown as well. So if you would prefer, rather than bunking boards, to name it camp groups, and then remember your division is your main group and your bunk is your subgroup. So if it were classroom and desk or any sort of combination here, that the name of the tool the main group and the subgroup can all be changed and customized. And if I made any edits, I would want to save changes. So I know that was a pretty dense section there going over the custom fields, the parent dashboard settings, and bunking boards. I'm going to take this opportunity to pause for a minute. I am going to make it a solid minute, so if you need to get a drink of water or check your phone, this would be a great time. I'll pause very briefly, and then we will resume with the camper approving a camper enrollment request in 2 minutes. And we're back. Thank you all so much for staying with me. We've got just a couple more items to cover. Next, I'm going to navigate to the camper enrollment requests. So that will be under the green campers module and here for enrollment requests. Couple of things to note in the filters section. I can go back to previous years of data, but it'll always default to the current. I can update the number of items per page. And the default sorting is to do the oldest request first, but I can change to newest or alphabetical if I'm trying to find a specific request. So for example, I can switch to alphabetical, update results, and it will reorder those. So now looking at the different statuses for these requests, new requests will populate if you are in manual processing mode, meaning the family submits the request from the parent dashboard, it goes into this queue and it has to be manually approved by an admin user. If you have a waitlist enabled and that session's at capacity, the request will be waitlisted automatically. So it won't go into the new queue if the session's already at capacity and the waitlist is enabled. It will automatically populate there. If you are in automatic processing mode, then the request will populate in the approved queue or again, waitlisted if the session reaches capacity and you have that enabled. The waitlisted queue does automatically populate with those waitlisted requests, but they are not automatically approved or rejected. So if you have waitlisted requests, you will need to come to this tab, whether you're in manual or automatic processing mode. If you have a waitlist, you will have to manage it here, either to enroll them if space becomes available or to reject the request and then follow up with the family to let them know. Unfortunately, they weren't able to attend or be approved because of that capacity or that limit. If you select to reject a request here from the waitlist or from the new queue, if they contact and say they actually can't attend and they haven't even been approved yet, if you reject them, that does not automatically send any information or update their status. It's not visible at all on the parent-facing side. So you will want to communicate with them directly, but it doesn't like show them as being rejected, so it's not something that have to worry about the family sensitivity. It's just on the admin side. So now I want to go through actually approving one of these requests. So I'm going to go here for Jenny and select to enroll. And this will open the enrollment wizard in a new window. Here's a little bit of information, the basic info for this camper and the primary parent info. Again, we have the how to use this page link, so that can be really helpful when you're getting started. Step 1, enrollment options. This will show you what the family selected. I have the ability to add additional options or remove an option as well. So while I'm approving, I can make changes. So in the scenario of a camper, they had requested 1 week and then they email and want to change it. If they haven't been approved yet, it can be changed right here in step 1. Just as a note that these can be managed by the admin. I'm going to proceed to the next step for questions. This will show me what the parents submitted on the parent dashboard. I do have the option to make edits or additional selections, but typically I would just scroll through, see what they had answered, and move on. If you have the transportation module, that will be your next step. If you do not, then it will take you to the bunking step. So our bunking boards that we just saw, if I have my divisions and bunks set up, I can go ahead and make those assignments right now. I don't have to though, I can assign them in the bunking boards tool, or I can even manage that from their camper profile. So there's multiple opportunities to assign them if needed. But if I already have that info, I could go ahead and select it here. And then the checkout step. So very important information on this payment info step. First, we have the tuition plan rate. If I have alternate rates, I am able as an admin to select those here. So if I have like an early bird or other specialty, I can select that. There is the registration fee that was added. I can enter a coupon code on the family's behalf, or I can select other discounts here on their behalf if I'm in manual mode. It does automatically select one discount based on the criteria, but if I change the criteria, it will let me know that this discount no longer applies. So for example, here in the payment details, they had selected to pay in full now, but that would require having an electronic method of payment. I would have to be actually charging something. So I'm going to select the payment method as none and put no payment method now. And then in doing so, it lets me know that the pay in full discount is no longer applying because I removed that pay in full option. So I can say, okay, I can go ahead and select that again as an admin, but I'm going to leave it off for now. The payment schedules, if there was a payment schedule, I could associate them here or assign them up for that. I see the parent signature and date. And then I get to the enrollment confirmation email. So this is why I was creating that saved email earlier in the training, is that I can select it here. I can opt to send to both parent 1 and parent 2, and I can attach a copy of the registration contract and a current statement for them. If I'm doing no payment now, if they are sending payment in a different form or outside of CampSite, I might not want to attach that statement yet until the financials are manually updated. But for this example, I'll go ahead and leave it selected. And I'm ready to submit enrollment. And now this takes me to the camper profile. So I can see Jenny here, her status is updated to enrolled. Under the action menu, I have the option to enroll her for other items, waitlist for other options, manage sessions, or unenroll. So manage sessions, I do want to briefly speak on this, that it does not affect financials. There's kind of a decent instruction section here that this manage sessions only changes which session they're actively enrolled in, but not the enrollment option, not the tuition plan, not the extras available. It's really just, are they showing up attendance or reporting wise on that session? So the recommended use for this might be if I had an enrollment option where my campers chose one of three activities. So the bundle would be a pick one of three sessions. Let's say they chose the basketball activity and then they wanted to change to soccer. If it's just swapping one session for another session that is in the same bundle, at the same price point, has the same extras, then I can utilize my managed sessions appropriately. That I am just switching one for two or two for one, like an even trade here. This doesn't update financials. If someone is completely unenrolling from a session, I would not recommend using managed sessions. I truly would only recommend this if it's an even swap where they can trade off one session for another and it doesn't change anything about the enrollment option or the tuition plan. So that being said, let's look at then unenrolling. If the camper cannot attend or they need to switch what option and they've already been approved, I would need to go to the camper profile under the action menu and opt to unenroll. Parents are not able to unenroll themselves, so an admin does have to do this process. If I'm just unenrolling the camper from one option, I would select that here. And then I have the option to remove them from payment schedules if it's a schedule associated with this option. None of these are associated with the spring break, so I would not need to do those. I could add a cancellation fee, so if they're unenrolling after a certain date and that applies, I could add it here. And I would submit to unenroll if I'm just removing them from one. That does not reverse their charges, so I would need to go to the family profile and manually update those to double click and reverse the charges for spring break camp. However, if the camper is unenrolling from everything, if I select all, they're not able to attend anything, unfortunately, then when I scroll down, I have kind of a new section here. So I am going to select a new status since the camper is no longer enrolled. Decrease years at camp by one is automatically selected. And then I do have this option to reverse all of their charges for the year, not including the cancellation fee. So if I add a cancellation fee here, it would not be reversed. This also does not refund anything. It doesn't reverse a payment or refund the family. It is just reversing the charges or the bill for this year. Since the camper's not attending anything, I'm unenrolling her from everything. So I am going to go ahead and submit this just so you can see how that looks. It will give me another notification to confirm, unenroll this camper. I'll say okay. And now, sadly, Jenny is canceled. I can double click now on her status and I have the option of editing these because she is no longer enrolled, so the automatic status doesn't apply. And just as a brief preview to the financial training, since I unenrolled her from everything and opted to reverse her charges, if I now go to the family profile and the financial tab, under transactions for Jenny, you can see that they've all been reversed, struck through, zeroed out. If they had made any payments, I could go refund them now if they were owed money back, but it doesn't affect payments or automatically refund. It just takes the charges, the bill for that camper, and reverses it. And that is only if they are being unenrolled from everything. If they're just being unenrolled from one option, then nothing will be automatically reversed and an admin user will need to come to this financial tab to manually reverse. And that concludes our phase 2 webinar today with the managing sessions and unenrolling. We do have a little bit of time remaining in the scheduled webinar, so I'd like to invite any questions now over that last section, the admin features or the enrollment approving. We have a question. Do the parents have the option to pay their full cost via the portal at any time after enrollment? Excellent question. The parents do have that option if it's enabled. This is maybe a little bit of a preview again to financial, but you are able to give them the option to make payments on the parent dashboard. So this is under admin, financial, parent dashboard specifically, and this will be in the phase 4 financial training, but just as a preview to allow parents to make payments, yes, you can enable that. So if they are paying just the deposit at enrollment, you might have the payment schedule set up and their invoice that way, or they can go make payments themselves on the parent dashboard.